Wait for it. Wait for it. And we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple nerdy veterans geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we're going to introduce this topic. So first, before we do, Randy's going to introduce himself. But before that, I want you to know that we're doing this episode purely for the fact that when Randy reached out and said, hey, do you mind sharing this around with some of the mill sci-fi people you know? I looked at it because I do that before I'll share things. I'm like, holy shit, $250 just fell out of my pocket and into his game. Well, now I need it to be a tax write-off. If we put him on the podcast, we can write this off as a business expense. And so
and then he sends it to me. And now I'm out $146.
Right. We're doing this just to justify like our gaming addiction and to be able to write it off on taxes. So thank you for helping us out, Mr. IRS man. And with that being said, Randy, could you introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers?
Hi, my name is Randy Johnson. Just a few things about me. Love science fiction, love fantasy. Have from goodness, I remember the first fantasy books, fantasy books I picked up was the Tripod trilogy back when I was in elementary school, and just away it went from them. Love all sorts of different things. For me, some of my biggest things are tabletop games, something like what we're going to talk about today with Acheron's Fall, which is an offshoot of the Infinity Universe. Other things like Heavy Gear Blitz. Love all sorts of different sci-fi series. My personal favorite is the Galaxy's Edge series by Nick Cole and Jason Asbach. Just love them. Picked the first one up as I was on a Kindle sale flying to Europe with my elder daughter, and haven't looked back since. Live in the Denver metro with my wife and one of my daughters. My other daughter is off at university having a lovely time. Both of whom are also huge science fiction and fantasy fans. One of the best science fiction kind of proud dad moments I had was my wife and elder daughter were traveling, visiting family. I was home with my younger daughter, and I said, hey, as a treat, I'll take you to a movie. Do you mind going and seeing? I'd like to see Dune again. Do you mind going and seeing with me? And she's like, sure. So we went, and as soon as we walked out of the theater, she was like, they have another showing tonight, right? We can watch it again tonight, right? And I was like, that's a little much. She's like, when did the next one come out? And so for her, being able to do the Atreides salute like Duncan does before they go in, and having a call and response in our house, KTF, and then she'll respond always KTF Leech. Just some of the different things that we do here.
Nice.
This is the way. All right. So say we all. We'll get all nerdy because
shiny.
Yeah, as much as we Twixter Nethers, as much as we family friendly, stop JR. So as much as we like you, we do have to ask you the religion question, although you could probably get it wrong and we'll let you stay because you're nerdy enough. But are you ready for this, sir?
I am.
Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly?
For me, gonna have to be Star Wars. Just love the original trilogy so much. Remember playing when I was 5 or 6 with my cousin on my grandparents' front lawn, and we were playing out like it was the final battle from it was the Battle of Endor from Return of the Jedi, and just so much fun there.
Okay. And because we are polytheistic, sir, Game of Thrones, Wheel of Time, or Chronicles of Narnia?
Because Chronicles of Narnia had yes, it fell off, but had a decent screen adaptation, and because never read anything Game of Thrones, and because one Wheel of Time, towards the end of it, it was a matter of I have to suffer through 650 pages of just so much long-wittedness for 50 pages that almost pays off, but not quite. And then the not goodness that, in my opinion, I know some folks like it, the not goodness that is the screen adaptation of Wheel of Time, I have to go Chronicles of Narnia.
Okay.
All right.
So solid answers. We accept all of them. Because we are civilized here, we are no longer knuckle-dragging troglodytes-ish. Coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
Actually, I don't drink either coffee or tea. The hot beverage that, if I'm going to have one, that I typically enjoy is mate from, from Argentina and Brazil. And I have it traditionally. I have a wood porro with the bombilla at the end. And my personal brand is Rosamonte Especial, which is one that they age for 2 years, but whole 9 yards with the stems and everything, and in the porro with the bombilla, and just pouring the hot water over the top.
Never had that.
Never had that. But we're going to pretend we know what you're talking about because we are cultured, and we're gonna say that's acceptable. Because send the hate mail to Madam Stabby if you know what that is. Because all right, was that something you grew up drinking, or when you were traveling the world as a younger man that you figured out?
That was something that I discovered when I was a missionary in Bolivia for 2 years. Southern Bolivia has a lot in common with Argentina and Uruguay. They call them Monteros there, but it's much the same gaucho culture. And so they'll drink it a lot. And I first picked it up there and just have done it off and on since then. So I've gone through probably a good dozen bombillas, which is the straw with a filter at the end, because you actually put the loose leaf into your wooden cup and pour the hot water over it and drink it up through that. I've gone through easily a dozen bombillas and the porros and things like that. So yeah.
Outstanding. All right. And so before we dive into the game that brought us here, and we're going to show that commercial you have on the game crowdfunding site, all of which will be linked in the show notes. How, like, obviously you talked about how you evolved from an early age to be a nerd, but how did you decide to go from, I like playing the games, I like reading the things, I like watching the things, to, yeah, I kind of want to create a universe and design games in it? Like, that's a huge leap for most people, and most people don't take that final step.
Well, on this game, I personally haven't fully taken that step. I am helping and collaborating on this game, and it was just a matter of that background and the idea of going ahead and seeing how does it go ahead and come together. What are the different things? Because this particular game, Acheron's Fall, it's set in the Infinity Universe of Corvus Belli. Both Ramper, the company that is crowdfunding Acheron's Fall, and Corvus Belli are Spanish companies, pretty much from the opposite extremes of the country. Corvus Belli is in Galicia, and Ramper is in the Balearic Islands. But just looking at it and seeing and having the opportunity to know some of the folks and to meet some of the folks who were behind the game and have a good relationship with them. And then as they're having projects, to be able to go ahead and help with translation, since I'm fortunate enough to speak, read, and write both English, Spanish, and Portuguese, to help with that aspect and helping with some of the background and some of the play testing and providing an additional point of view. It's something that's just has been interesting looking at it, and it's the kind of thing that down the line I'd like to go ahead and perhaps help and build something from scratch. But just the opportunity to be part of it and help make it happen, it's just been so rewarding.
So since we're here to talk about the game, the universe is larger, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But what would you say the age range for this game that we brought you here is?
You're probably going to be looking at starting it with the lowest range I would put is probably going to be about 10 to 12. That's really where you're going to have a good attention span where a youngster is going to be able to go ahead and jump onto it. There's a decent amount of moving parts, which I love because it brings it in. I can say definitively that academically inclined and nerd inclined teenagers are going to enjoy it. Got the test copy, went ahead and got everything painted up, and to go ahead and familiarize myself a little bit more with it, I've played several games with my daughter who's here at home with us. And at first, like, sure, Dad, I'll play with you. And when her venomous tree frog of death shot its railgun right into the stern of my ship and just went right through it like a hot knife through butter, she was like, "When are we playing again?" We played again. I managed to beat her finally, but barely. And then we've had a chance to play some other times, and she just smokes me off the board. And so so for teenagers on up, it's going to be great. It brought her in. She's like, "I like this. I want to play this more. This is a lot of fun."
Okay. That's pretty cool. tell us a little bit more about the larger universe that this falls into, the Infinity.
Certainly. So Infinity is a tabletop game by Corvus Belli. I'm going to be slightly off on age. Right now, it's around 15 years old. It's set approximately 175 to 180 years in humanity's future. Humanity's expanded off-world and has populated multiple systems. Earth, all of the major powers don't have capitals on Earth. They still have representation, but they moved on, and humanity is coalesced into several large power blocks. There's Pan-Oceania. The faction that I principally play in is we shoot everything the best, and Pan-Oceania's philosophy is apply ballistic attacks of increasing caliber and damage until the problem is solved. Pan-Oceania, which is built on India and the Philippines, Indonesia, Chile, Brazil, has Neoterra, Acontecimento, Aruna, Svaralheima, and part of Paradiso. Yuxing, which is future China, has representation still on Earth and has twin systems. Shentang, and I don't play them, and I always like to beat them, so I've forgotten their other world. Then there is Hakislam, which is the modern Islam on their planet of Borak. There are the Nomads, which are, for lack of a better term, you could say they're spacefaring gypsies. They have 3 huge, not quite world ships, but huge ships that have millions of residents. Corregidor, which grew from a prison. They have Tunguska, which is run by the underground and is a haven for information. And then Bakuni, which is hedonism brought to life and also has the Black Labs of Praxis, where some of this advanced technology, but some of the darkest things come out. For folks for fans of the Galaxy's Edge universe, Bakunin, especially in the Black Labs, would fit very much onto a Savage Hulk. And then there is the human world of Dawn, which was the original colony sent out through the wormhole. Unfortunately, the wormhole collapsed, so they were cut off, and and their culture has built up. And there is a Russian/Cossack nation. It's all one nation with a Russian/Cossack area. A U.S. Ariadna, which sees itself as the 51st state, and whose military is the security for the colony ship was provided by the 75th Ranger Regiment. And so all of the U.S. Ariadna units are Ranger regiments, is what they call themselves. Then there's the French, a Merovingia, and then there are the Scots of Caledonia. Then there's an AI called Aleph, which has its aspects and has its troops, some of which are based on Vedic and Indian mythology. But then it also has to fight the alien enemies of the combined army. It has the Greek heroes, Achilles and Agamemnon and Teucer and Ajax the Great. And then finally, you have the aliens of the combined army. It's an evolved intelligence of the Ur-Rationalists. The Ur-Rationalists is a people that wanted to achieve transcendence, to go ahead and leave the physical universe behind. And then they built an artificial intelligence that achieved the level of transcendence, looked at the civilization that built it and said, y'all are evil, I'm gone. So it left, and then they decided to build an evolved intelligence, which took all of their own personalities and blended them together, and has yet to be able to achieve transcendence. And so it travels the universe, the galaxy, conquering and bringing new civilizations into the fold, trying to get a transcendence project going. And so humanity is fighting against the evolved intelligence.
Wow. I'm pretty sure that was the abridged version you gave us too, right?
Somewhat, yes.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. It's a lot of factions, lot of sides to choose from, I guess. So yeah, Space Rangers. You said Space Rangers, 75th Ranger Regiment, my old unit. So hell yeah.
So,
Yep,
Nick
they have.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Say Nick went on.
Oh, I was going to say
about the Rangers, and I'm here when you said prison colony. I'm like, oh, so Space Australia or Space Georgia for the Americans.
Yes, very, very much so. Is Corregidor was specifically in the lore. Corregidor was specifically built. There were in drug wars in South America after a basically a busload of kids, the rich and famous, was attacked by narco guerrillas. Um, they went is all of the worlds of the country decided, you know what, we're going to go ahead um, and we're going to make a prison in space, and that's where we're going to send them all. And so they sent them all to space with various crises. Eventually, the organizations and the countries that had built Corregidor, they lost financing, and so people who were displaced as humanity built orbital elevators to more efficiently get to space, folks who were displaced there, they were settled in Corregidor. And when the countries that had been paying for it had to go and cut off their funding, the warden and the governor of Corregidor was still called the warden. The governor looked at all of the different prisoners that were there and said, you know what, you're going to get to work. Some of you are have lots of friends on the outside, and so they had what they called the red auction of Corregidor. And they said, okay, here is prisoner so-and-so. Whoever wants him, by this time, tell us how much money you're going to give them. And some folks had their freedom bought by their friends and by their cartels, by their criminal gangs. Some folks were bought by a rival criminal gang and put to death.
Damn.
And one of the big things is the warden looked, and there was a particularly violent but effective, a violent but very, very intelligent and had been quite effective till he was betrayed by his own terrorist called the Mexican general Juan Sarmiento. He looked at him and said, "You're going to build my forces because we're on our own. We have to be able to defend ourselves. You have carte blanche. Go through everyone we have, build this military force so we can go and defend ourselves." And so he did, and they became one of the. They're known. That particular part of the Nomad Nation is known for space repairs and is known also for their military. They'll go ahead and contract out and serve as mercenaries in other forces and go and defend themselves.
Nice.
So you mentioned, in addition to the Infinity system, that there was something called the Corvus Belli. So what is that?
Sorry, Corvus Belli is the company that makes Infinity. They have Infinity as their primary universe. They have a battle arena game called Odysseia, also set within Infinity. They've had a couple other Kickstarter games, and they're getting ready to go ahead and launch a fantasy universe called Warcrow as well through their company.
That's pretty interesting. I'll have to keep an eye on them.
So what's the relationship between Corvus Belli and Ramper Design?
Ramper Design originally began as fans of Corvus Belli. Corvus has a yearly tournament, and so Ramper would go and they would play one of Ramper's earlier games called Takure, which is Cyber Rugby, Cyber Sevens Rugby.
Oh, I like it.
It came about. Yeah, it's a lot of fun as well. It had its genesis in the world, on the world of Ariadne, the American, Scottish, Russian, French planet in Infinity. There are werewolves. They're called dog warrior. They're called dog warriors and dog faces. They're basically werewolves, and they play rugby. It's called Dog Bowl. And so Ramon Perez, the creator of Ramper Design, he developed a dog bowl game and kept developing it and made it his Takure Cyber Rugby game, and just continuing to develop, has that close relationship with Corvus Belli. And folks have been looking at, and Corvus has been wanting to go ahead and put together a space game. And they went ahead, and as they were talking, Ramper said, "Hey, we have some of these ideas. What do you think?" Corvus was like, "This is awesome. Yes, go ahead and license it. We'd love to support you making this game." And so that's how Acheron's Fall came about.
Jared, looks like you're out some money with the space rugby.
I know, I'm probably gonna have to buy another. Wait, is that in English?
I'm sorry?
Is the space rugby, because this company's in Hispanic company, well, Spanish and Portuguese. So is the game in English, the space rugby?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. They have a a Terriermorphs team, which is basically Beast Warriors. They have a cheetah, a wolf, a gorilla. There's Yamato, which is kind of like a samurai team. They have Dorikin, which is basically the bike gangs from Akira. They have SIC, which is Section 9 from Ghost in the Shell, the various parts of that universe. And then they have the Islanders team, which is a Pacific Islanders team. One of the characters is one of the miniatures and characters is literally Jonah Lomu on the Islander team.
So I will get with you offline to get the link to that. I'll have to look into that for reasons. I'm sure we
Thank God it's in English, so JR's not hitting me up at 1 o'clock in the morning like, hey, man, what's this word? I'm like, is it Spanish or Portuguese? I think it's Spanish. Okay, I know a little of
that. Yeah, the tax man is going to be like, I don't understand all these games. How is this work related? I'm like, reasons, man, reasons. All right, but now we're going to
10%.
Yeah, right. It's for research purposes or something. We're going to show this commercial, the explanation on the game crowdfunding website that Randy put together. Let you watch that, and then we're going to dive in and we're going to talk about the game itself that brought us here. So we're going to do that right now.
Hi everyone there, and welcome on board to the Ultimate Tactical Fleet Engagement board game. Welcome to Acheron's Fall.
Vice Admiral Clarence Kaufman, Commander of the 5th Fleet, speaking. I want to say something, and I want you to listen carefully. You may die today, yes. However, we will all die for the same thing. Humanity's survival. They don't want us to fight together, united, and that's what we need to change. We will die satisfied, and we will hold the Dark Lady's hand with pride, because we would have given our lives for the highest honor, to give humanity one more second. We will give our everything to stop the apocalypses. And united, we will prevent Acheron's fall and the end of humanity.
This new amazing board game, developed by Ramper Design, takes place in the universe of Infinity from Corvus Belli. Infinity is a skirmish war game set about 200 years in a possible future, where the human race has divided into different factions and superpowers looking for resources throughout space. Of course, as always happens, some alien factions are around with evil intentions. One of the most important places of confrontation in this space against this new threat to humanity is the Acheron's Gate, where one of the biggest human fleets ever, formed by an alliance of human factions, is constantly engaged in fight, holding the line against the alien combined army. So this war is what we will be part of in this game. Placing ourselves in the human or alien side, we'll play the role of a fleet captain from our big command bridge, managing different resources from the ships under our control, such as the energy flow, the ship crew, the weaponry, the tactical strategies, and the damage crisis. The command panels simulate all this kind of management stuff. This other panel is called the Inertial Mass Effect panel, and it will help the captains to keep tracking on the inertia of the ships while moving through the empty space, and thus figure out to which propeller send energy in order to change direction or speed. Be careful, because shooting also affects the inertia. A lot of different stuff is involved in these fights, like other bigger or smaller ships, artificial intelligent missiles, asteroids, hacking systems, and much more. Everything is represented by high-quality miniatures, detailed tokens, cube counters, and cool cards. Everything included in the core box. Acheron's Fall can be played competitively 1 versus 1 with an expected duration of 1 hour per game, or like a multiplayer game up to 8 captains that each one will have to choose between the human defenders or the attacking aliens. There will be also included many different game objectives and scenarios, adding some flavor to the experience. Here you can see the main core factions represented in each one of the boxes of the campaign, and much more to come, with the aim of getting as many Infinity factions represented as possible. So, this is an overview of Acheron's Fall, already available at GameFound campaign. There's more info at Rampers Design social media.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I love the artwork on it.
Yeah, the artwork was amazing. The video was good. We appreciate you watching that with us. I just thought that was the best way to kind of show you what was going on. It was too cool not to use it. But with that being said, so you saw, if you're listening, first off, we appreciate you sitting through the commercial that whatever Spotify adds. But I really do think you should check out the video versions, Rumble, YouTube, BitChute. It's worth watching the video. If you don't want to do that and go back, you could definitely go over to the crowdfunding website, which will be linked in the show notes, and you could look at there at all the images. But with that being said, so that is the game. When you talked about whoever was in the video, when they talked about the expansion, is that something that would be addition to the game, or would it be new games in the same space? Like, what would the expansions look like?
The expansion is going to be expanding the game itself. The core box, right now in the crowdfunding campaign, the core box is going to have a total of 7 ships as it currently stands. You'll have a Pano cruiser, a Pano frigate, a Yujing cruiser, and a Yujing destroyer. You'll have an Evolved Intelligence cruiser and an Evolved Intelligence destroyer, and a Morat assault frigate. Those are the 7 core ships. Then there are 2 expansion boxes, the blockade runners, which in the Acheron's Fall blockade there's the first line of defense, which is the heavy cruisers of Pano and Yujing, since they're the largest nations. Those heavy cruisers manning the line. As enemy ships exit the wormhole, they'll go ahead and come online and engage them. Ships then that manage to escape and get through and start moving into humanity's space, into the Paradiso system, they then will be engaged by the blockade runner forces. Those will be Hawk Islam, the Nomads, O12, the Space UN, and then Ariadna. Those are some of the faster, quicker, smaller ships, so less weaponry to bring to bear. But they're able to go in and track those ships that leak through, and go ahead and attack them and bring them down. And then the final expansion is aptly titled The Final Wave, and those are other of the conquered nations from the Evolved Intelligence, the Shazvasti Stealth Destroyer, an extra fleet character to go ahead and launch swarms of fighters. Those are going to have an Onyx Contact Force, diplomatic ship. And the Onyx Contact Force is diplomacy in force. It's more a matter of, I'm going to punch you in the mouth and in the mouth again and again until you fall down. And once you've fallen down, then we're going to go ahead and talk about how you're going to go ahead and surrender. And then a Sigma symbio/bio frigate. And so the blockade runners and the final wave, those then are the expansion. And so they're expansion boxes within the same game.
And then after this game finishes, whatever expansions are a part of the stretch goals, what would more be available in the future, or is this a one and done game? Sometimes they make a game and that's it. Sometimes they support more and more and more. So where do you see this going?
The hope is to be able to support more and more and more. Cannot say definitively, obviously, but based on the success that we've seen in the first 2 days, we're 52 hours and 17 minutes into the crowdfunding campaign as we record this. The hope and the idea is, yes, to have more down the line, and the success that we're seeing makes that more and more likely. Again, not guaranteed, but that is the idea, to go ahead and keep supporting it going down the line.
Okay. So do you see more in the universe? I mean, obviously, if you go look at the Corvus website, you will find that the Infinity system also looks like it has a graphic novel, more on the manga style design. Is there going to be more in this universe, or are they going to stick primarily to games?
Ramper will stick more to the game itself. Corvus Belly does periodically go and commission and bring out manga, and it's a constantly evolving and growing system. They just recently, about 3 years ago, released the 4th edition of the game, the Infinity main game. There are new releases coming out every month. Infinity has a defined tournament system, the ITS Infinity tournament system, that's on its 15th iteration. They're constantly evolving the game through that. The idea now more crystallized into an actual plan for Ramper is to have a tournament system, and as Axel in the video mentioned, to have scenarios and things like that to go ahead and play within Ramper and within Acheron's Fall, for that to continue to grow as well.
So what is the tournament system for those of us that don't know?
For the Infinity tournament system, they have an online tournament manager, and there are events happening all the time throughout the world. Lots of them here in the U.S. Many areas will have a large yearly tournament. Here in the Denver Metro, ours is called the Krug. It's kind of gone up and down. We've had some of our smaller iterations of it in recent years have only been about 50 folks or so. We've had ones up to 80. Pre-COVID, there was a very large tournament in Albuquerque called the Rumble on Route 66, that their last iteration had something like 160 players. But you go ahead and you get matched. Typically, a tournament's going to be 3 rounds, and you'll have 3 rounds at this certain point level. Various missions that you have to go and accomplish. It's not just kill or be killed. One of the current missions that they have for the ITS is called Last Launch. And basically what you have to go ahead and do is evacuate your forces. And so you have to go and get your forces to a central room in the center of the board. Go ahead and download an ID code for every one of your troopers, and then evacuate your troopers off the board. And depending on how many of your troopers you evacuate, how many of your opponent's troopers you manage to keep from evacuating, you go ahead and score your points, and we'll go and look at it, and you'll win prizes and go move up and down the United States, Spain, or rest of the world rankings, and then also have someone who is the top rankings. The biggest tournaments are called satellite tournaments, because if you win one of those satellite tournaments, you get an automatic entry to Corvus Belli's yearly interplanetary tournament, which is held in Vigo, Spain, in typically end of August, beginning of September, to go and play against some of the best players in the world.
So are these tournaments online, or are they in person?
They're in person. For some of the bigger ones, typically it'll be held at a hotel or an event space, and typically run 2 days, have 3 rounds in the first day, and then 2 rounds in the second day, in person. And they're much more, and they're also nice big social events. All of us now have long-standing friendships with folks. For example, it's kind of like a little bit of a science fiction connection for each of us. We'll see folks we might have not seen in a year. People will play their games roughly between about 10 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock at night, and everyone goes to lunch together, and then people will go out and figure out where dinner's going to be. And usually, since it is in a hotel or something like that, people come back. We'll go ahead and sit around talking, having drinks at the hotel bar and the hotel lobby. And generally speaking, we'll go to bed midnight-ish if it's an early night, and then come back together in the morning.
That's
Yep.
100% a convention right there.
Yep.
So, go ahead, Nick.
I was just saying, if I ever go to one, because they sound cool, because I like conventions, I'm wearing my liege helmet.
You'll be recognized. I know at the tournament that I go to in Salt Lake, it wasn't this past year. I could not go because my daughter's graduating high school, and it's like, no way, no how am I going to even broach the subject. Not last year, but 2021. It was actually held at a ski resort. It was just coming off season, and I know I saw another Liege from Arizona there, because had a Legion T-shirt and a Legion ball cap on. So,
yeah, I'm still trying to get Walt to make Liege Ranger panties, the running shorts with just the Legionnaire symbol on there. And I don't know why he fights me so much on it. One of us,
Okay. So do you have to, in order to play Acheron's Fall, do you have to have played the Corvus Belli Infinity game?
You do not. It informs on the lore and things like that, but it is in no way, shape, or form is it a requirement.
Okay.
Good. You can just jump right in.
So this game, your crowdfunding, for whatever strange reason, is only 15 days. So we're airing at like day 5. So there's probably like 10 days left when you're listening to this to back it. But this is, we get people that listen to episodes sometimes years later. So when the crowdfunding, because it's already been backed, like if you back it, guarantee you're getting your thing. There's no risk at this point. Like literally hours in, and they were like 3 times.
You're getting the game.
Yeah, you're getting the game. But assuming you don't catch this episode in time and you don't hear about it, how can they get the game after the fact?
There will be a late crowdfunding. It's not set in stone. It's likely going to be most likely March, could be April of next year. Additionally, Ramper, when they crowdfunded Takure, it has since then also become a retail project, available for retail through their website.
Okay.
And so if you are listening to this down the line, I can't say with certainty, but I can say with 99.9% confidence that if you hear this down the line, you say, hey, this sounds cool. Visit Ramper Design. As JR already mentioned, we'll make sure that their website and their social media is available in the description, and almost certainly be able to go to the website and be able to order the game.
Okay. So you said the game, the Acheron's Fall at least, generally takes about 1 hour to play-ish if you're playing with one person, according to the video. Now, do you recommend, as far as like, news starting out, to do the 1 versus 1 or to get multiple captains? Like, what would your advice be to new players who saw this and said, this looks cool, I'm going to be like JR and drop $250 because why not? # business expense. What advice would you give to new players?
Definitely, I would say go ahead and start at one-on-one. At the one-on-one level with the core box, you're going to be running probably 2 or 3 ships versus each other. I'm going to presume that we reached the goal, and so you're going to have a total of probably 8 ships in that core box. And go ahead and put together 3 on the human side, 3 on the alien side, and go ahead and play those to go ahead and get a feel. You can also back it back down to 2, or just having a one-on-one duel to understand some of the mechanics has been really fun with my daughter, especially because the ship that she's picked, the Eugene Destroyer, is very quick. It's very nimble. Its gun is disgustingly powerful. It's a railgun mass driver that just blasts through shields, and so being able to go ahead and maneuver and things like that to go ahead and wrap your head around the inertial mass effect, doing that, and then you can expand out to the 2 or the 3, and then you can go and add more folks in. And the great thing about the core game, is that you'll be able to go ahead as you've learned the mechanics, as you started to you understand the game. Then you can go ahead and you can expand it out to have more people playing together.
So we mentioned that the ships come in the pack. What level of do you have to put the ships together? Do they come together? Do you have to paint them? Do they come like what can we expect from the actual pieces?
The ships themselves almost certainly will come in one single piece. Some of them might come in, for example, like in two pieces. That's unlikely. The prototypes were all one single piece. They did come unpainted, and so you'll want to go and prime them and paint them. And I really feel like Garber found a great place for them because they have enough detail that they're really fun to paint, but it's not a matter of, oh my goodness, there's all these tiny details, there's all these things that I have to go and try and do. I'm overwhelmed by what I'm trying to do. There's enough detail to be really enjoyable, but not so much that it's overwhelming. Go ahead and paint those. You will have to go ahead. I went ahead and glued the flight stand into them, and then I set them in the base. But that's the extent of the assembly that you have to go ahead and do.
Okay, I am going to be the guy that rocks the unpainted version because I've got none of those hand-eye coordination skills yet left. One too many TBI concussions. But for those of you who like to paint, you should take pictures of it and tag Rampart Design so they can see your finished product. Because I'm guessing the sky's the limit with your ability to get the final look. So, do the ships come named, or is there room for players to name their own ships?
You can definitely name your ships. They come with a class name. For example, the Panoceania cruiser is a Sumeru class cruiser. The Yujin destroyer is a Shubaji class destroyer. So the class will be named, but you can go ahead and name them as you would like.
Okay.
Lovely.
So, is there the ability, like some tabletop type games, once you have the core rule set, there is definitely room to, 3D print your own stuff and add to the game to expand it, on your own. And some of them will have the templates to create the stat blocks. Is that something this game did, or are you kind of just stuck with whatever the base ships are?
There's not yet something to be able to go and expand it out like that. One of the things is already unlocked through the stretch goals is for the same hull. There are different types. For example, there will be an alternate configuration of the Panoceania Sumeru class cruiser rather than the heavy energy cannon, which is just obliterate ships that get caught in its fire, to be able to go ahead and mount large quantities of drone fighters instead. Additionally, all of your ships are going to have some ability of customization, because it's a matter of you picked your hull, you picked your hull, you picked your block. So it's a Sumeru Block 2, which is the drone type. And so you'll be able to pick what kind of drone fighters you're going to send out, some ability to go ahead and choose what are some of the captain's abilities you have. Additionally, in Infinity, there's hacking. They call it quantronic combat that happens in cyberspace. And so there's also ability to go ahead and have cyberspace attacks. So there's ability to go ahead within a point system, choose your hull, choose parts of your loadout, choose what captain you're having, and what additional things you're going to go ahead and do for your ship so you can customize it within your loadout.
So you can hack enemy ships in this game?
Yes.
That is fucking awesome.
So let's be clear. When you say you can adjust the loadout of the ships, the miniature figure is going to be the same. The stat block is going to be different.
Yes, some of the weapons you're going to have, because the weapons are on cards themselves. They're not on the control panel, and so you'd be able to go and swap them out.
Okay, because the last thing you want is to glue everything together and then realize next time I want to play it slightly different, and
No, your visual representation is going to be the same. Nick, in addition to being able to hack enemy ships, there is ramming, and things like that. The Morat culture of the aliens, they are they're an extremely militaristic culture. The name Morat, if you were to translate it into English, literally means he who kills with the left hand. Everything in Morat culture is based on your regiment. Everything in Morat culture is based on what battles you fought in and things like that. Much like in Battletech the Bachelor, where different regiments, different clans will go ahead and bid who's going to attack, who's going to go and do what. Morats will do the same thing. They'll bid, we're going to go ahead and we're going to be the ones who breach. We're going to be the forlorn hope and go ahead and breach the enemy fortress and things like that. So there's going to be, and the ship itself, if you look at it, its prow is armored and is shaped like a combat knife.
Oh, nice.
The Morat ship. And additionally, there will be boarding actions. In Pan-Oceania, Pan-Oceania has revived the crusading orders of the Middle Ages, and so there are the Knights of the Hospital, the Knights of the Holy Sepulchre, the Teutonic Knights, and my favorite order, they're the Knights of Santiago, and they're a fleet-based order, and they do boarding actions. So the Knights of Santiago, one of their common things in the lore is they will be launched in individual stealth pods in their heavy armor to go ahead and latch onto an enemy ship, breach it, and then board it and take it over. And so you'll be able to go ahead and do that in Acheron's Fall as well.
That sounds awesome. I can't wait to play this.
So which do you think is more fun? Because you've played with your family, playing as the aliens or playing as the humans?
Playing with my daughter, both times I played with the aliens. So when I played when I've done some demos with friends, I went ahead and played with the humans. Since it is a prototype and we don't have all the things, I would say it's a little bit more fun. I like the Yujing ship a little bit more. I like the Pano ship a little bit more, but that's my personal preference. The Yujing ship, it's just so maneuverable, and the way it moves around, my daughter literally did so with the inertial mass effect panel, is you can go and set it so that your ship is moving one way, but you're facing a different way. That's it right there. She set it up so that she slid right by my ship with her nose painted at me, and it's just as she slid by me, she fired her railgun into the side of the Morat ship and just blew it apart. And so it was just like, I'm upset because I just got destroyed, but I am so proud that you just got that and you did that maneuvering and just drifted.
Oh, man.
Exactly.
So Nick, when you play, are you gonna do the Hordor maneuver?
That is so stupid. No.
There's no.
I feel like just twisting the knife on how much I hate that movie.
I couldn't help
and that particular maneuver. I'm gonna go drink myself to death now.
I will have to say that wouldn't be possible because in Infinity is most ships for intersystem travel is you go ahead and you go through wormholes, and so the energy requirements to go and enter the wormhole through what they call a Minotaur engine, they're so massive that outside of like super carriers and fleet command ships, most military ships don't have a wormhole engine mounted. Is there in Infinity? There's what's called circulars, which are gigantic city ships that are like tens, if not hundreds of kilometers long, where ships go ahead and just attach to it, and they're mobile cities, and they just have their routes that they follow. It's like, okay, we go through this wormhole and the next wormhole. So that's a long way of saying the abomination that is the Holdo maneuver is not possible in this game.
Because they got to plan the routes. I got kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy. You got jumps that you got to make.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And so
I like that.
Different systems connect to different ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So in some games, like, you know, the standard, like you talk to your kid, like I've talked to my son before, and I'm like, hey, do you know how to do X? Because we're playing a video game together or whatever. And he goes, no, I'll just YouTube it, right? Because that's his answer for research, or BitChute or Rumble, whatever. We support all the video platforms. Is there video content out there to help or some sort of resource for new players that are just struggling to get it, but they just think it was so cool they dropped the money to buy the game?
We already have some that are out there. I had the opportunity to appear on Late Night War Games, which is another gaming focused system, and had a chance to really go in depth on how the movement works, how weapons work, things like that on that. Additionally, in the space between the crowdfunding has been successful and has closed. We're going to go ahead and put together that content so that folks don't feel intimidated when they go ahead and open it up. It's like, oh my goodness, I've got my control panel and I've got my crew cubes. We're going to have more content so that folks can go ahead and feel at ease with that.
So speaking of content and feeling at ease, is there some sort of community platform? Like some games have Discords now, some of them are starting Facebook groups, although I think kind of Facebook is dying. Is there any fan sort of player centric communities where people can join to find either people to play with or advice, that kind of thing?
Yes, there is. Ramper has a Discord channel. And I'll make sure that we have the invite and the information on that for you so you can put it in the description. That covers their games. Additionally, in the Infinity Discord, in the Infinity Discord, there is a channel for Acheron's Fall, and I've seen it in several of the wider Infinity ones. They've gone ahead and they've added channels for Acheron's Fall as well, so that folks can go ahead and look at that. So yes. Long-winded answer is yes, there are fan channels and things like that to be able to go ahead and find out where folks are and get information on it.
I just realized that when I grabbed the picture of the Acheron's Fall, because that's just such a glorious image, it shows my backer number. So this was taken when he first told me about it Friday, and we put this on the books. I was like, that sounds cool. Let's get with Nick. And literally like the second it went live on Friday, I'm like, wait for it. And then when I was processing my order, it went from 0 to funded in like the first 15 minutes. There were a bunch of people waiting for it to go live, which I thought was kind of cool.
That's cool.
I was definitely digging the game. I like that you have the community. Is there a link between the game style of this and what is the Infinity games? Are they just linked because the universe is shared, or is this play style the same?
Both. There's the universe link. Infinity is, if you think about tabletop games, if you think about something like obviously the 800-pound gorilla in the room, Warhammer 40K. If you think about something like Legion, Star Wars Legion, something like that. They're bigger games. I mean, Warhammer, you might have easily 100 models on the table for just one side. With Infinity, you're typically for ITS play you're capped out at 15 troopers per side. You might come in under that because you have your points and then your troopers, but you're capped at 15 troopers per side. And so it really is still skirmish. And same thing with Acheron's Fall. Rather than it being a matter of you've got 10 ships on each side, it is going to be that skirmish where you've got a small task force within the larger fleet, or it's a matter of you have, this is our sector that we're responsible for. We've got a breach. Scramble and let's go to it. And so it is that smaller scale, that skirmish element. And so it ties really well with Infinity that way.
So is there any plans for the Acheron's Fall to get to ground bases as well?
Directly in Acheron's Fall, no. But already in the different community platforms, folks are talking about having it. It's a matter of like, we're going to have the fleet action in Acheron's Fall, and then when we have the boarding action, we're going to go and shift and have our game of Infinity to go ahead and play out that boarding action.
Okay. So the Infinity is more of the ground combat, or troop combat, because obviously that can happen on space stations or in ship corridors as you try to steal from the enemy. And And then Acheron's Fall and the Rampart is all about the space action. Now, this is obviously ships of the line, it appears like, and your tactics accordingly. You mentioned the Discord channel for Rampart, which is like the perfect place if you come up with the perfect maneuver like your daughter did, and you want somewhere to brag and nerd out and get other ideas to steal from them as well, which I think is kind of cool. Is there plans to go, I guess, smaller scale in that, well, you know, this ship might have fighters or drones or whatever, where you can expand into that as well?
It's been something that's been kind of talked about, but nothing concrete. There will be fighters for Panoceania and for the Evolved Intelligence, the Combined Army, drone fighters for a nation like Haki Salam, or the Nomads, which are or actually more Haki Salam, which is famed for their fighter pilots. But even then, it's going to be less a matter of, okay, we're getting now down to like the X-wing scale of ship of fighter-to-fighter combat. It's more going to be a matter of, here is a token or a small flight stand that represents the squadrons that have been scrambled, not the individual fighter ships.
That's still cool. Would that be incorporated into the Acheron's Fall game then, instead of being something separate?
Oh yes, and that's something that's already going to happen. Is there will be fighter squadrons that you'll be able to go ahead and have in the game.
Okay, cool. I like it. So once this is done, and it's clearly going to get funded, so I expect you're going to get your stretch goals that you've already listed. What is because I suspect you're going to have to add more stretch goals because you just keep going. And I know I said this was going to air Monday, but I'm going to air it like literally as soon as we're done. This is going to go up. Monday's episode will go up on Saturday because why not? So you guys have time to back it while it's live. What other stretch goals could you see them having to add? Because like I said, you're filling them as quick as I can read them.
Yeah. So some of the things that are planned that I can mention without giving too much away. In Infinity, you have the larger nation. And then you'll have like they call them sectorials. You have sub armies within the large vanilla faction. Right. All of the vanilla factions will be represented. There are some which aren't yet in the game. They will be. There will be further ships for the factions that are already there that will be in there. Additionally, in Infinity, they have what are called the NA2, which are the non-aligned armies. Those are mercenary companies. Those are the independent space nation of Japan. Those will also be represented, and so their representatives are sitting there. And so more ships for more factions will be coming out. Those are some of the big things. One of the things that just funded. For folks who enjoy it, there will be a tabletop simulator mod that will be released as well, that they'll be able to go ahead and use, and more weapons, more things to be able to go and do with the different ships.
Okay.
And one of the big ones that Infinity fans are hoping for is for the Aleph. The humanities artificial intelligence folks are really wanting to see their representation. For fans of Infinity Z, there will be a left representation. Just keep following the campaign. There more ships are going to be coming, and more things you want to go ahead and add.
So you used a crowdfunding platform that neither Nick or I had heard of. It was what was it called? I'm drawing a blank. I'm going to pull it up.
1 second.
GameFound?
Yeah, GameFound. I've never heard of that. So why there instead of any of the other platforms that are out there?
As Ramper was looking at it, GameFound, one, focused on games. Additionally, it has been used multiple times, both by Ramper and multiple times by Corvus Belli and other gaming companies as their pledge manager. And so one of the big things was, rather than do something on Kickstarter, which is still a good platform, but obviously as it grows bigger, as it grows bigger, it grows more sclerotic and stuff, and there's more like bureaucracy to navigate. Whereas Game Found focus on the gaming space, also have the ability to have your pledge manager right there in it. And those were some of that nimbleness, that focus on the gaming space, and the ability to have a pledge manager built in, were why Ramper decided to go with Game Found rather than one of the other platforms.
And was it your decision to do it 15 days? Because most of them people are kind of used to a 30-day model.
They did want to go ahead and do something shorter. They had success with it in when they did Takure and things like that. And so that was some of the thinking behind it. Also, additionally, the kind of thing where kind of keep it a little bit more focused and a little bit tighter to be able to work on it.
Okay, so this closes in like 13 more days as of airing it, because I'm going to put it up tonight as soon as we're done. With it closing, how long after it closes do you expect fulfillment?
Fulfillment, looking at probably this same time next year, is for full fulfillment. To actually have it in hands this time next year is the goal to have. And again, as mentioned, obviously development, looking at having perhaps a late pledge in March or April of next year, and then again fulfillment to be this time next year.
So when this comes out for the late pledge in 2024, will you reach back out to us and come back on to remind anybody who didn't see this first episode to pimp this, because this sounds like it'd be a lot of fun?
I would be more than happy to. Very much so.
So for people that aren't familiar with Game Found, because Nick and I neither of us had heard about it, because we were kind of like, oh, this is kind of neat. So how does that work for someone who's never backed a pledge like that? When you pledge it and it comes out to whatever it is, because this is based in euros, which means that there's trends like calculating to US dollars for us Americans. Does it pull the money right away, or are we banking and hoping that the dollar conversion is in our favor when this process is next year?
What will go and happen is when the campaign closes, that's when they'll go ahead and collect the funds. So if you listen to this and you listen to if someone listens to you, JR, and you, Nick, talking about, this is something we want to go ahead and do. When you go ahead and decide to back, you will enter your payment information. One of the nice things with Game Found is you can go ahead and divide it into 3 installments over 3 months. So rather than it having to be for example, let's say we'll do what you talked about as your pledge, JR, the Commander pledge, which is the core box plus both expansions. And then you mentioned that you were going with the mats. And so that's a 215 euro, 220 euro commitment. They'll go and collect the funds at the end, or you can break it up into 3 payments. Each of those would be 67 euros each. When you go ahead and pay, Game Found gives you the option either to have them convert it, or you can leave it and you can be charged. You can be charged by your card carrier in euros, and your card company will go ahead and make that exchange. For anyone who, like me, is fortunate enough to be a USAA customer, I'll try saying that 3 times fast. Let USAA do the conversion, because USAA gives you great rates. To be honest, it is the kind of thing you're looking at a matter of maybe a couple of dollars on the exchange between having Game Found do it or having your card holder do it. It's just kind of there. And then if you have a late pledge, when you do late pledge, then it'd be a matter of they would go ahead and collect the funds at that time and go ahead and put them in.
Okay.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Wait a whole year. It's like Christmas.
I was thinking the same thing. So when you do the reopening of the pledge in next summer, is it going to be new stuff, or is it just going to be for people that missed it, they can buy in?
It'll be for people who missed it, so they can go ahead and buy in at that time. Additionally, if you look at it and you're like, you know what, I'm kind of on the fence between, do I want to go for a commander? Do I just want to do a captain? When either the late pledge or when the pledge manager, where you go ahead and fully allocate, is like, okay, I want to make sure, okay, here's my commander that I'm getting. Yep, I definitely want the mat. You know what? I want to get extra defiance, or I want to get a second final wave expansion. When you go ahead at that time, you can go ahead and add on. So if you look at it, it's like, you know what, right now, my budget is such that 85 euros for the core box. That's all I can do right now. You go ahead and you pledge that. You're charged at the end of the campaign. Move forward. Then down the line, when they open up the late pledge, or at the pledge manager, you say, you know what? I decided I wanted to get everything, so I've saved up those 100 euros. I want to go ahead and add more on. You add more on at that time. You can always expand down the line. And coming in the core box, you're going to have, again, right now it's 7 ships. You're going to have the IMEs. You're going to have your control panels. You're going to have the alternate control panels. You're going to have all of your cubes. You're going to have the tokens for your weapons. You're going to have the dice to go ahead and play with, and it uses a standard D12, no proprietary dice. Went with red for humans and purple for the aliens. That's how I always do it. But yeah, so you've got the dice that you need, not proprietary, just D12s.
Okay, cool. I mean, I have boxes of dice that are getting dusty right now, so they're going to get about a year's worth more dust before I can break them out. But I like that the dice comes with the game too.
I mean, some of us nerds have bags and bags and bags of dice, but for people that are new to nerding, we gotta ask the questions they need to know too, right?
That sounds like a podcast in itself. Welcome to New to Nerding with your host J.R. Handley.
Yeah, we could actually probably make that happen. I mean, we're talking about all the topics and just being in general nerd chats, and we're here for it. So
yeah,
okay,
we got content for like the next 4 years.
At this point, I'm like, we've already booked through the end of season 3, and I'm like, do we take a break or do we just keep going? Because I'm having fun.
Let's keep going. Mom didn't raise no quitter.
Worst case scenario, we just air an episode a day, but who needs sleep, right? All right. So the Discord community, is it more towards just basics of the rules, or do you guys have like strategies? Is there room for strategy, or is it mostly luck of the dice?
There is very much room for strategy. One of the big things is as you're going ahead. So as you saw from the video, there's some you go ahead and you generate energy each turn. You go ahead and allocate it, and that's hidden from your opponent. And so if you and I are playing JR, what we'll go ahead and do is we have our ships. We will have cards that go ahead and determine the initiative order of when our ships act. Captain cards may be able to go ahead and modify that. But then it's a matter of like, okay, this is the order that we go in. So I go ahead, you make your determinations, I make mine. Then we reveal and we put everything into place. And so one of the things, is as you're planning out the strategy, several of the different weapon systems, they actually put a projectile on the board. And so one of the things that playing against my daughter that she did is she maneuvered so that she knew she was too far away for her to get me with the railgun on that turn, but she fired regardless to go ahead and put the projectile out in space so that I then knew, okay, I'm going to get hit with it on my next turn, and I need to start maneuvering so I can go ahead and be prepared after I've taken that hit, and I hope I survive, how can I go ahead and maneuver to try to go ahead and put her under pressure as well?
Okay.
It's very nautical. I dig it.
So you put to play actual physics into game consideration?
Yes, very much so. And that's really one of the things that makes Acheron's Fall an actual space combat game as opposed to Age of Sail with spaceship skins. With the IME, the inertial mass effect panel, once I put thrust into my ship, I don't have to keep firing my thrusters to keep moving. Is I have gone ahead and say, okay, I'm moving at my first velocity band, my second velocity band, or my third velocity band until and unless something else acts upon me. Either I fire my thrusters, or I fire one of my weapon systems that has a recoil effect. Nothing's going to stop me. And so you go ahead and you keep moving. And so it can be a matter of you're moving on. You can be moving on just your straight up and down. You can be moving on a diagonal. I can be moving this way with my ship, but I'm facing this way. And so I'm just kind of sliding along because I went ahead, got myself moving in this direction, and then fired my thrusters. So I'm facing this way to go ahead and use my weapon systems. And once you wrap your head around it, and I'll admit, it takes a moment to go ahead and for that to click in your head. But once it does, it's so much fun because you sit and you think about, okay, I'm going to go ahead and shift this way, and using the Pano cruiser, I fire torpedoes from amidships. I don't fire them from the prow of the ship. They fire from midships. So I'm going to go ahead and turn and fire my torpedoes and use those to kind of block somebody in, and then position myself so that I can use my forward mounted weapon systems to deliver a punishing blow on them.
So there's thrusters all around the ship because you're operating in a 3D space, up, down, left, right, everything on the XYZ axis. Okay, so
and so
excuse me, that's pretty cool because there's some games, like I remember playing Star Wars Armada, and you didn't have that type of factor in the game. It was just like, so so you can maneuver your ship. So I've got my bow right here, just my thrusters underneath and midship or wherever I need them up towards the stern. I can get in there in position, fire on top of my enemy, and just drop hell. I like it.
Yeah, exactly.
I like
exactly.
It.
And
That's
so
each
ship, when you see it on its control panel, it's going to it has how much thrust it can put into the rear thrusters, forward thrusters, both. I always get port and starboard confused, but your port and your starboard thrusters, and then your turning thrusters, your attitudinal thrusters. And so, and so, like, for example, the Yujing destroyer, since it is so nimble, you can put enough power in your attitudinal thrusters that you can flip, you can do a 180-degree turn.
Nice.
And
Death Blossom.
Yeah, the big yes, very much so. And one of the funny things is so getting yourself moving this way, flipping, and then firing your railgun, and that means you just keep moving that direction because you have the recoil from the railgun, but it keeps pushing you in the direction that you're going, and just opening up the enemy ship like a can opener.
And that's all controlled from the little boards with the pins.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool.
Yes.
So when you think about space combat, I've seen it in books, I've seen it in games, I've seen it in video games, I've seen it in some movies. It works really, really well. But the idea, if you're getting railgun fire, for instance, is there chaff you can throw up to slow down, deflect? Are there space mines to have the people run into, enemy weapons, that sort of thing?
Chaff we've not yet talked about. Perhaps unlikely, but you do have point defense cannons that you can go ahead and use. And so, for example, the human ships, the Yujing cruiser Yujing destroyer has the heavy railgun, and then it has point defense hyper rapid magnetic cannon. So it has point defense mini railguns, and as you have missiles or you have torpedoes coming at you, you can try and use those. If you've allocated energy, you can try and use those to go ahead and shoot it down. Each of the projectiles has a certain speed that it's traveling at. And so what you go ahead and you look at is you say, okay, this is my skill level. Each ship has a certain skill level. This is my skill level. And is my skill level high enough that my gunners can try and go ahead and shoot down the projectile? I'll be honest, with the railgun, it's not going to happen. The railgun moves at 10.
Nice.
The railgun moves at 10. As it stands right now, the two cruisers, the Latraca EI cruiser and the Samario Panoceania cruiser, their command level is 9 for the Latraca, 8 for the Pano. If they go ahead and they activate their XO, they can add +1 or +2 and +1. So they're at 10, but it's a matter of, even then, it would be, their target number would be 0, so they can't manage to do it. Against, for example, the torpedoes that the Samaru fires, those only move at 5, and so you could go ahead and use your HRMCs to shoot them down.
Nice.
So how does crew morale, the old joke, the beatings will continue until morale improves as a ship takes line damage. Like that was always a factor is it, in older combat, it would especially ships of the line. Sometimes the ship's crew that held the longest won for virtue of just morale kept them in the game. Because a lot of times it was where you were killed and destroyed when you ran, right? Because then you're opening yourself up to attack from a strategic point. Does that factor into this crew morale?
Morale does not, but there are 3 ways your ship can die. Excuse me. So the way damage occurs is you're hit and you roll your saves, you miss damage. You have your shielding, which you get points of that stripped off first. Once that's been stripped away, then it starts to attack either your hacking systems, your weapon systems, or your thrusters. And then, so each of your 3 areas on your ship, your prow, your midships, and both the midships are collapsed into one section for damage. And then your stern, once one of your systems is stripped away, then damage goes through either killing the crew, destroying command and control and life support systems, or damaging the reactor. And so you can lose your ship to either all of your crew being killed, you can lose your ship to all of your life supports and command and control is destroyed, so your crew abandoned ship, or if your reactor is destroyed, your reactor will go critical, you have a cascade failure, you will explode and cause damage. And so there will be a template. And if your ship is either your crew is all killed or your crew abandoned ship, then your ship's hulk will continue to drift in space on its last known trajectory and will be an obstacle for other folks to have to go and maneuver around.
Nice.
I got some ideas for that.
Okay, I got lots of ideas tinkering on in my head. So was there anything about this game that we haven't talked about that you think they need to know? I mean, obviously you sold me just on the pretty pictures because I backed it, but
yeah.
One of the things that I really like is the idea of banking your energy and making sure you've got things, banking the energy and making sure that you're planning a few steps ahead. Because it's not just a matter of like, oh, I'm going to fire my main gun. It's a matter of like, oh, do I have enough energy banked to go and fire my main gun? Have I assigned crew to the targeting systems to be able to go ahead and fire my main gun? Also looking at it, you can also go ahead and store energy. And so it's a matter of like, okay, am I going to make sure that I have enough reserve energy stored so that if I need to, I can fire my PDCs? Because if I've dumped all my energy and to firing my main gun and I don't have anything to assign to my PDCs, I'm just gonna have to take the hit and move on to it. And that strategic thinking, that figuring out, okay, how am I going to maneuver? How am I going to present my most armored part to my opponent as I'm in range of his weapons? How am I going to go and close? Just that the beauty of the miniatures sold me straight away. But just that strategic thinking, that having to go and plan ahead, I really like that.
So speaking of planning ahead, can you run out of ammo for your ships?
You can. The projectile weapons. So for example, on the Yujing destroyer, it's heavy railgun. You can fire 6 shots. And once you've gone through those 6 shots, you're done with the heavy railgun. Every ship does have at least one weapon system that doesn't have an ammo limitation. But yeah, for the other ones, like if you've run out of ammunition, it's a matter of like, okay, let's just try and soak up fire, or let's try and go ahead and make sure we get behind and try and use what weapons we have remaining, so maybe to like chip away or work in conjunction with my other ship to go ahead and make that big difference.
So in some games, there's a distinction between like the person that wants to be the tank, the damage dealer that soaks up points and deals damage, then the player that wants to do range combat. Is there room for those sort of iconic play styles in this kind of game? I've never played tabletop game before. I mean, I've done RPGs, but not a true tabletop game like this. That's why I'm asking.
There is. For example, with the Pannoceania Samara class cruiser, right now, if it takes a hit on its frontal armor, unless you have an armor piercing effect on your weapon, you can't do damage to it. Its armor value is a 12, and for any of the values, it's a matter of I want to either hit or roll below the number. It's like, okay, you hit me. You don't have anything that's armor piercing. My armor is a 12. That's fine. And so the Samaro can just keep barreling towards you to go ahead and close to use this weapon. With the Morat frigate, the knife frigate, same kind of thing. It's got a heavily armored prow. It has decent maneuverability, but one of the effects it will have in the game is its prow is specifically armored so that it can go ahead and ram and not take any damage itself. And so that's one of the things where, yeah, the Morat is like, yeah, we're going to ram you, we're going to cut you in half, and we're not going to take any damage, but you are. And so you have that space to go ahead and you have that space to have those different things. Within the lore of Infinity as a whole, the specific alien race, the Shazvasti, and their ship is in the last wave. It's the Shazvasti stealth destroyer. They're sneaky, stab you in the back, folks. So very much, as it were, like the rogue, or the rogue of a tabletop game or of an RPG. So they're very much looking to maneuver, shoot you in the back, kind of go and zip around and things like that, keeping you from being able to hit them because they're typically lightly armored, and to go and have those go ahead and do things that way.
So I do have one last question for you. If you look at the game image from the website, it's glorious. If you're listening, I really suggest you check the Fund the Game link and go look at the art from the game, the images from actual gameplay. But those little tokens between the ships on our screen that are on the image, if you look, you'll see them. What do those little tokens represent?
Those are going to represent the projectile weapon fire, and so each one of those projectiles is going to remain on the table for multiple turns. So looking at them with the smaller image, I'm pretty sure those are the plasma cannon from the Latrocus. So what happens with your projectile weapon is it goes ahead and it fires and it will travel its velocity. And so for those plasma cannon tokens, it will travel 8 inches and then it stops. At the beginning of the next turn, after you've made your energy allocations and you're starting to do things, it will move another 8 inches, and the other side of it is green. So it'll go from, it fires on green, it moves on green, flips to red, and then on the next turn, its third turn on the table, it will move and then go off the table. And so those are the specific weapon fire. The plasma cannon, as it stands, the plasma cannon and the heavy railgun, their projectiles can't turn. The heavy missiles of the Morat frigate, they can, as they can make one facing change, so they can go ahead and try and catch somebody. And the torpedoes that the Panoceanian cruiser fires, they can turn twice. So they'll go and shoot out the side of it, and then they can go and turn and move to try and go ahead and attack the enemy. And you're going ahead and you're making so, okay, this is where this particular projectile is going to move, so I have to avoid getting caught by it.
Nice.
Okay. One last question. Does the game take into account celestial bodies, or does the battlefield where the combat takes place sort of through plot reasons get that off the board? Is that something you have to factor in?
Yes, you will have to factor that in. Large celestial bodies like suns, planets, things like that, really not. But included in the core box will be at least 2 tokens for asteroids that you'll be able to go and place on the board, and then those will be some things that you'll have to go and maneuver around, because there will be rules for impacts and collisions.
Okay, so you answered all my questions. It sounds like a fun game. I'm glad I backed it. Definitely going to be getting more into it. Hopefully, at some point, you have options to allow people to play like digitally. If you've got a game and they've got a game, somehow play against your opponents, not local, because that would be fun.
That was actually the last I checked. That was the crowdfunding goal, the stretch goal that had just been released was to have a module for Tabletop Simulator, which is available in Steam, so that you can go ahead and play digitally against someone else.
Awesome.
Oh, nice. Nick, you're going down.
And
Gonna put that out there.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah,
just gonna
you
say
don't
that.
know anything about ships.
I don't need to know. I've got lucky dice. I'm just going to throw that out there. With that being said, all right. So, was there anything you wanted to tell us about this game before we wrap it up that we didn't already ask? I think we've been pretty thorough.
I agree. You've been fairly thorough. Just want to go ahead and say, again, it's as I've been looking at it, as I've been doing demos with locals and at some Infinity tournaments and things like that. As I described it, when it's a game that a high school girl initially plays once to humor her dad and then says, "Can we play again?" That's a success. That's a success for a game because it's
that's a big deal.
Eat
That's
your heart out,
selling
Hasbro. And they're crashing and burning because they didn't care about their players, and you guys are thriving, and I love it. All right. With that being said, obviously you're just a representative of Rampart Design, but how can we find Rampart online so we can let our listeners know? And as usual, the links will be in the show notes.
I'm sorry, I just had a thing. Let me see. So they're at you can go to their website is based on their initial game, Takure. So you can go to takure.com and it'll be in the show notes, but that's TAKKURE.com. And that's Ramper's page. Again, Takure, TAKKURE.com. And that's Ramper's page.
Oh, freaking standing. This is the part of the interview, dear listener, where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right books. But since we're talking about a game today, instead, I just encourage you to blast it all over your social media. Fire and forget and tell all your friends about this awesome game and other awesome games you enjoy, because if you want to stick it to the man, if you think Hasbro is ignoring you and giving you boring claptrap and you want better, then you kind of have to support the people that are giving it to you. And that in this instance is Acheron's Fall. It looks amazing. I'm excited. Nick's excited. I'm going to beat him on the Steam game and he will cry like a little bitch as I take him down. I'm just saying. The gauntlet has been thrown. And if we can figure out how to film that, we're definitely going to put that on there for the air. If I manage to lose, I am sure the films will get lost. Don't know how that happened. Only victory allowed here. And with that being said, if we manage to get that episode, Randy, we will have you back to participate, because why the hell not? Beauty. If you win, it's acceptable. Nick is just not allowed to win. That is just the rules.
I'm not allowed to win. That's the ruls in this house, too.
Yeah.
All right. Challenged me to Madden and he lost horribly.
You could find us on our link tree at linktr.ee linktree/Blasters and Blades podcast. Again, linktree/Blasters and Blades podcast, where we have all of the things links: the Rumble, the BitChute, the Twitter, the email, the Blasters and Blades Facebook group and Facebook page. We have all of Madam Stabby Stab's links, including your email if you want to send the hate mail. We have our website over at anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades. Again, anchor.fm/blasters-blades. Stabby does make people cry. You can support us over on that website for as little as 99 cents a month. You can help keep the lights on. If you want to take bets over who wins, Nick or I, game's open. We will know. We have till next year, to get that bet over there on Vegas odds. I'm just saying, you could support the show more directly over at buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section that it is for the podcast. And I promise I will keep my co-hosts, Nick Garber and Stabby Stab, and all the cool people over at Coffee Brand Coffee duly caffeinated. We will drink until the Java pours out of our eyeballs. And let's make that a bet, Nick. When we do this game, loser has to buy the other one a bag of coffee from Coffee Brand Coffee.
You son of a bitch, I'm in.
Out freaking standing. Randy's like, I don't know what these people are talking about. They're way too competitive for me. They're insane. It's okay. This is just how we roll. Something about this game made me just, want to play King of the Hill all over again. Do you find
Beautiful.
like game rage when you're playing, like you just want to scream?
For myself, no. But I know folks who do it, and I can understand it. Not my vibe, but I know folks who do it.
All right. Thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-hosts, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. And I lied because we don't normally air episodes on Saturday night. This is a special one for you. Consider it Monday's gift early, because why the hell not? And with that being said, have a wonderful evening. Randy, thank you for coming. Thank you for taking my money. I am glad you reached out. My wallet, not so much. The IRS, who the hell cares? And with that,
thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. And we're done.